And that will bring us to item 9, House Bill 899 by Chairman Doggett.
Well, good morning, and thank you, Mr. Chairman, and
You're
members
recognized,
of this
sir.
committee.
And just so you know, I've about said out of service twice today.
Well, and I'll say it 2 times tomorrow, I'm
Okay.
sure.
Yeah.
So-
I've wanted to go out of service twice instead of out of session. So
Right.
you walked in, and I think it just has been on my mind.
Here in a
so.
few moments, I think we'll have an opportunity for you to go out of service.
Perfect.
So
Perfect. All right. Yeah,
But-
I do have Ms. Strucker on the list to speak to this bill, so.
that is correct. Members, I thank you for entertaining me this morning. This is some legislation that we brought last year that we worked on for a few weeks, trying to get the language right. Our intent here is very simply to add into the section of code, which we referenced, the Tennessee Firearms Freedom Act, where we're listing and displaying that all rights enjoyable by the Article 1, Section 26 of our state constitution and those of the Second Amendment of our United States Constitution are a civil right listed in there. It is our intent that those rights not be infringed upon, and if they are, without due process, that there are certain remedies that an individual, a citizen of this state, can exercise for those violations. And so we had made some changes to it last year. I stand for any questions that you may have of that in regards to this.
We have members. Does anyone have any questions for Chairman Doggett on this bill? All right. I don't think we have any questions for you, but without objection, we'll go out of session. We'll hear from Ms. Stroker.
Hello, committee.
You know the drill. So.
Yes, Elizabeth Stroker, Legislative Director with the Department of Safety, and thank you, Chairman. We were talking about this bill earlier, and definitely not, hopefully not doing what we did last year with the 3-hour debate. We had just, unless y'all want to, but we had just recommended that the language be a little bit tighter so that it would have to be related to if a final court, so either the U.S. Supreme Court or the Tennessee Supreme Court found that something was unconstitutional, as opposed to just any judge or any court finding it unconstitutional, just because we all know that that can be appealed and that can take time. And so we didn't want to be subject to any type of litigation or lawsuits in the interim while something was being appealed, because we do have that often. If we, deny a handgun permit, somebody can take it to their local judge, they can overturn it, and then we have to appeal it. And so we would just prefer that it be a final adjudication from a higher court.
Fair enough. Members, any questions for Ms. Stroker? All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
That was less than 3 hours. All right. Without objection, we'll go back in session. All right, Chairman Doggett, and you heard Ms. Stroker there. Is there room for compromise here? Is there something we need to work on, or do you think the bill does what it needs to do?
I understand the concerns that safety has in that. I think, last year we had a lot of the same concerns. I think the language that we worked on last year and got it to where it passed, ended up passing through the full committee without anything. I think that we're in a good place, but if there is a need for us to go back and re-examine this, I'm open to the committee's suggestions, but I personally feel like we're in a good posture.
Yeah, it sounded like safety's concern was just the need to maybe bypass some lower courts and maybe move straight to the higher courts, maybe the state Supreme Court or United States Supreme Court. But I think we need to go through those processes anyways in order to get there. Members, any questions, comments for Chair Doggett? All right, you're recognized, President Clemens.
Just one, I promise. So the concern here is opening up the floodgates to litigation against entities. And I know the language in here, the way it reads in Section 1, Sub A, says it's a violation to infringe upon or deny an individual the full exercise and enjoyment of any right recognized by the provisions. But it's not a violation for anyone to enforce regulations or laws within the scope of the entity or so forth. And so that clause tries to collect it, but, are we opening up the door, if we pass this legislation, to anyone just being upset if they try to go to a restaurant, for instance, that prohibits firearms? Are we just opening up a series of litigation of individuals who are just disgruntled, filing lawsuit after lawsuit after lawsuit because of their interpretation of this, while the restaurant's only exercising their rights under the law as well?
Chairman Doggett?
That's a good question. We addressed that, of course, last year. Chairman Curcio helped with some language about that. That was one of the main issues that we had last year to try to take care of it. It's not our intent with this legislation that would prohibit a restaurant or a business or entity from posting that firearms are not allowed in there. What we are looking at here is government agencies, entities, local law enforcement, even maybe others who deprive you of your rights by taking your firearms and not giving them back to you. That's what we're aiming to defeat here with this legislation, is to prevent that. There must be some due process in doing this to make sure that your rights are not infringed upon, that you have an opportunity in court to defend yourself before those firearms are taken from you.
Representative Clemens, any follow-up?
Yeah, so narrowing it down then to a government entity or agency. So if you go to the airport and they take your firearm or weapon, or if you go into the state capitol, if the governor, whoever, has a rule that you can't allow firearms in there and they take it, is this opening up litigation to the state of Tennessee, the airport authority, others, government agencies, or acting in that scope?
Chairman Doggett?
No, sir, because again, those areas are posted that you cannot have firearms there. You as a citizen have the same rights that I do, that we can make the decision either to proceed for knowing that we are going to be in violation of the law, or we can turn around and leave. And so no, that would not create a cause of action for that.
Very good. Representative Clemens?
You answered my question. I appreciate it. I just can see, let's say worst case scenario, some organization decides to fund a bunch of litigation to try to disincentivize certain agencies or persons from exercising their rights and prohibiting these firearms. And it gets to the point where it's just fiscally the cost-benefit analysis of prohibiting them versus just allowing them just because they keep getting hit with suit after suit after suit, even if they get dismissed. That's a concern of mine. So thank you for answering my questions.
Very good. Members, Representative Griffey, you recognize.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Representative Dogg, for bringing this legislation. While there could be some concerns, I think the legislation is addressed to state actors violating clear law and the rights. I think currently, if you had an overly zealous law enforcement officer or agency that was depriving someone's rights, it's extremely difficult for an individual to go up against that governmental entity to protect their rights to have a firearm. And so what I think this is doing is giving that individual citizen a little more protection to say, look, here's the law. You can't violate the law. If you do violate the law, even if you're a governmental entity, you have consequences too, and you could be subject to civil action, so that the person's rights to carry a firearm are protected. So I support the legislation on that basis. Thank you.
Members, any more questions, comments for Chair Doggett? Seeing none, looks like we're ready to vote to send House Bill 899 to Civil Justice Full Committee. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, say no. Ayes have it. Bill moves on.
Thank you.
So now we're on item 30, Senate Bill 1333. You're recognized.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Senate Bill 1333 provides that it's a violation of an individual's civil rights for a government entity, official, employee, or agent to infringe upon or deny an individual the full exercise and enjoyment of any right recognized and protected by Article 1, Section 26 of the Tennessee Constitution regarding the right to bear arms, or any right recognized and protected by the Second Amendment to the United States Constitution. This bill further provides that a violation of its provisions may be enforced by means of a civil action which may be brought in the county in which the action arose. With that, and there's no amendments.
Okay, not 6532. That's what,
No, we were going
Okay.
to go with the original bill.
okay. Do we have a motion on the bill? By Senator Roberts. Do we have a second? Seeing none, your bill fails for a second.